Hey, what is going on, everybody? My name is Zach Sopak, and today I'm going to show you how to get good photos in bad lighting. So let's get into it. Well, like I said before, my name is Zach Sopak, and the purpose of this channel is to help you grow in your photo and video game through tutorials, reviews, and creative insight. And if any of that sounds interesting to you, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to this channel and make sure you hit that notification bell so that way you never missed out anytime I post a new video. So if you've been in photography for any amount of time and you shoot outdoors, then you know that there's a lot that influences the lighting conditions when you're shooting. Things like where the sun is positioned, what time of the day are you shooting in? Is there cloud coverage? Is it overcast? Are there buildings around you that are creating these different types of shadows? All of these things go into affecting the lighting conditions when you're shooting. And if you're in photography, you already know that lighting is like the most important thing that influences the look of your images. And because there are so many variables that go into affecting the quality of light when you're shooting outdoors, many people tend to shoot around like golden hour, right around sunset, just before, just after, or even really early in the morning before the sun rises. This is done because the lighting is very predictable in those situations and it gives you a really nice flattering look. However, you may not always have the flexibility to get out at certain times of the day, and with time change and different factors like that, you might need to shoot during the day when it's not the most ideal type of lighting. So today I want to show you a few photos that I took recently in bad lighting conditions, and I want to show you how to get really good photos even when the lighting situation is not very good. And the first tip is to actually take photos in a shaded area. Now, when you do this, you actually can dull down the intensity of the sunlight, because when you shoot midday, you're getting this very harsh light that comes like top down because the sun's right up in the middle of the sky. And this creates a very weird kind of contrasting, very harsh look between your highlights and your shadows. So if you're able to find some cover, if you're able to get into a shaded area, that's going to diffuse that light and it's going to bounce off of different surfaces, and it's going to create a more soft look for your subject. So in this scenario, my wife and I, we were running around Santa Barbara, and I actually found some buildings where they had some nice shaded areas. So we went over there and we got a few photos first. And let me show you the results. And remind you, this is in midday conditions, the harshest light that you could possibly have during the day. And check this out. What we have here is really nice, soft, and pleasant lighting, because you can notice around her, the whole building and the whole structure around us was all white. So with the shade and everything created this nice, really soft, diffused look, as if you had this really big, like soft box kind of like all around her, which is really great because this is in the middle of the day. This is very harsh sunlight, but you wouldn't know it by looking at the shot. So here's another example of using shaded covering to get some good photos when the lighting is not so good. We were down on the beach at a different location by the bluffs in Santa Barbara, and there was this big shadow being cast by the rocks. So I had my wife step back into the shadow, and we got again that nice kind of soft diffused lighting, which the raw file looked really good. And then go ahead and add a preset and do a little bit of editing. We have a very nice looking image. And mind you, this was still middle of the day, harsh lighting, but because I had her step back into the shadow, we were using that nice kind of diffusion style of lighting by having that light bounce off all the other surfaces and not have it be shining directly on her. You get a really good look. The next tip to get good photos in bad lighting situations is to use backlighting. Now, backlighting is a pretty common technique used in photography where the subject is in between your light source and the camera. When you do this, you're able to expose properly for whatever it is in the background, and then you're able to raise up your shadows in post to reveal the subject in front. And when you do this, it produces a really nice looking glow type of effect for the subject. It's very flattering, it's very cool when you have that background nice and bright and vibrant, and then you just kind of have this nice halo effect on your subject. Let me go ahead and show you an example of how I use backlighting in these poor lighting conditions. So here we are again at the beach. We've got Rachel standing in front of the sun. I'm a little lower in position when I'm taking this photo because the sun is up higher in the sky, but you can tell by the shadow there and then by the glow around her that she's being nice and backlit by the sun. Also, I'm keeping the exposure of the blue sky so that way we can have that later on in post. So then with this photo, I added my preset. So you can see we get to retain all of that detail behind her in the sky, in the rock face, in the water, but we're lifting the shadows for her being the subject. So now we can see her face, we can see her clothes, her outfit, and everything like that. But I'm going to show you in a couple of other images that the subject doesn't even have to be directly in front of the light source, and you can still pull off some decent looking images in that poor lighting condition. Here was another shot in that same area, but now I was standing up a little bit higher, a little bit more eye level with her. Still looks pretty good. And even in some scenarios, you can get some nice little flares if that's something that you're into. And you can get a really good looking image, even when the sun's really high up in the sky. It's not most ideal. This looks pretty stinking good. The next tip to get good photos in bad lighting is to actually just embrace the bad lighting. Now, this is a little counterintuitive based on everything that I've already told you up to this point, but I think that in certain scenarios, not for every photo, but for certain photos, you can actually use the bad lighting conditions to your advantage. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So in this scenario, Rachel was in a different location. We were still on the beach, but she was just kind of like doing this whole thing by herself where she was kind of like basking in the sunlight. And so I encouraged her to keep doing that because even though the lighting was pretty harsh, I felt like it was fitting for the mood. You know, if you're kind of like in the sun bathing, like bathing in the warmth of the sun, like you're going to embrace it, right? You're not going to be in the shade. You're not going to be in a darker area. You're going to be right there in the middle of the sunlight. So when she did that, like I said, she embraced it. We went for it. I felt like I'd be able to get some sort of a good edit once I got the raw photo into Lightroom. And this is what the result was. Right here, really warm. I think for this particular photo, it actually works pretty well. Like I said, I would not do this for every single one because the shadows are so contrasty with the brightness on her skin. It's kind of a tough look to pull off consistently, but every now and then this actually looks pretty good. But if it's something that you want to do every now and then to kind of pepper in during your midday shoots, I think this works. Okay, the last tip that I'm going to give you is kind of a 2-for-1, if you will. It's first to shoot raw files and then learn how to edit those raw files. If you're not shooting raw images with your camera, then I would really encourage you to start doing it. Now, the reason why you would want to shoot raw photos instead of just JPEGs is that JPEGs only have so much flexibility with the images once you take it. Typically you take the shot and then everything's kind of baked in. So your white balance is pretty set, your exposure is pretty set. You can edit it somewhat, but you don't have nearly the flexibility that you do with a raw photo. If you have a raw photo, you underexpose, you overexpose by a little bit, you have a lot more flexibility to recover that stuff when you're editing in a program like Lightroom or Photoshop, anything like that. Also, you can correct your white balance really well. You have a lot more flexibility to edit your colors, and it's just a way better experience overall on the editing side. And that leads to the second part of this tip, which is to get familiar with an editing software. Now, you can take really good photos in camera. Sometimes, like you'll take one and you're just like, oh my God, this is like the best thing ever. I already know that this is good because it looks really good in camera. Some other photos, maybe not so much. I mean, even on this shoot, there was a couple where I was a little afraid that I had kind of messed it up or it just wouldn't look really good or I just didn't know what it would look like. But I took that raw photo and once I got it into Lightroom, I added a preset, I adjusted some of the exposure and the white balance. I got a few of them that I was really happy with. So I highly encourage you to shoot raw and to get familiar with that editing software of your choice because you'll probably surprise yourself with what you can actually do and how much you can recover, how much you can move the colors around in post-production with raw files and a nice editing software. Well, hey, I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you got some value out of it. And if you did get value out of it, why don't you go ahead and add some value right back to it by hitting that like button, and also consider subscribing to this channel for more regular content just like this. And don't forget to hit that bell icon, so you never miss out. Really encourage you to try these techniques. Go out in the worst lighting conditions and just see what your creative brain and genius can create with all these techniques. And hey, if you do go out and shoot some photos in some bad lighting conditions, why don't you go ahead and tag me on Instagram and show me your work. I would love to see you guys putting these techniques to work, and it would just let me know that, hey, you're getting some value out of this video as well. But that's all I got. Until the next time, my name is Zach Sopak. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.